Whole eggs are the most anabolic food source that you're probably not eating enough of. Stop wasting your time eating the egg whites and the oatmeal, or even worse, just avoiding these things altogether because you think you're gonna die of a heart attack. Now, this little thing that I'm holding in my hand is like a ball of testosterone. It's going to get you leaner and it's gonna get you stronger, so start eating more of them. And I can already hear it. But Coach Eric, what about my poor little heart? What about my cholesterol levels? And look, stop with all this cholesterol nonsense. I don't know why it's still out there and why people are still spewing it. But look, the cholesterol issue, it's been gone. It's been dead. There's been so many books written about it. There's been so many research papers that have tried to put the last nail in that coffin. But apparently it still gets spewed by experts and doctors. And look, yes, I said it. And look, I love doctors. You know, I train doctors. I help them get in shape. Over the last couple years, 1/3 of my clientele were doctors. When it comes to trying to educate them about health, you'd be surprised. It's a little bit worse than when I try to teach my niece about it. And she's 5. It's not their fault, okay? They're taught something that's very specific, and nutrition is usually not that thing. So enough of the ranting and let's get into it. Are eggs bad for you? Are they good for you? What about cholesterol? Well, that's exactly what we're going to answer. The way we're going to break this video up is first, let's look at cholesterol. Let's define it. What is it? Why do we even need it? Is it good for us? Is it bad for us? Then we're going to look at some of the myths involved and surrounding the whole idea that eggs are going to be the thing that's primarily driving your cholesterol up and then causing a heart attack. And then last, we're going to go ahead and look at some of the reasons why eggs are probably the most anabolic food source that you're not getting enough of, and how it could actually be one of the easiest things to implement into your diet to start making you get leaner and stronger. So now, what is cholesterol? Well, it's a sterol, right? Think about the name, cholesterol. So it's part of the steroid family, primarily floating around and found in the bloodstream around lipoproteins, and it's responsible for producing sex hormones in your body. It's responsible for helping with vitamin D production. And the other thing to know is that every cell in your body requires cholesterol. And the thing that you guys have to understand is that cholesterol is actually like the base structure of the majority of sex hormones. And without it, you're not going to be able to produce things like testosterone or estrogen or whatever else your body needs to be in a good state to help promote with building muscle and losing fat. And why this is important is because we actually find that low cholesterol is very, very bad. Not only is it very, very bad, but it's very, very, very bad if your goal is to start building muscle and start losing fat. In fact, what we find with people who have low cholesterol profiles is that you see things like Alzheimer's, because cholesterol is required by the brain cells, and if you don't have enough of it, you might actually be lowering your overall cognitive function and your memory. Not only that, but if you don't have the necessary building blocks for things like testosterone, well, then it makes sense why your levels are so low. So if you're the type of guy who's been going around and you're not eating steak, you're not eating eggs because you think those things are very bad for my heart because I heard about that from someone and I think some doctor said it or whatever. No, that might actually be one of the biggest reasons why. You see, some of these food sources that we have at our disposal, while people over the years have tried to demonize them, more research has come out recently that has tried to stop this. The problem is some of these old studies that exist back in the 1960s, 1970s, and even in the early 2000s continue to still be spewed by doctors as mainstream research and evidence when it's not. In fact, in 2015, almost all health associations have dropped the cholesterol issue and have stopped saying that eggs are bad and you should limit them. And the reason why is because in 1968, the American Heart Association came out and pretty much said no more than 3 eggs per week. Try to keep your total cholesterol levels below 300 milligrams per day. But so much research has been done since then to prove that that is just not the case. And the other thing to understand is that your total cholesterol levels do not matter. And the reason why is because observational data has shown that people with optimal lipid profiles still suffer from heart attack and stroke, whereas other people who have very low lipid profiles, such as like low HDL, high LDL, high triglycerides, they don't have any type of heart attacks or they have no risk of stroke. And the reason why, if you look at the majority of the cardiovascular leaders out there in this industry, it's because they say that cholesterol is not a good indicator for how arteries can get clogged with plaque, nor is it a good indicator for how your heart is functioning. And you see, most cardiovascular specialists will agree that a coronary calcium scan is actually going to be more beneficial and determining your total levels of risk. Now, with that being said, where do these myths really come from? Where do they start? And why are they still being spewed? So now we have to ask the question, well, when we look at eggs, whole eggs in particular, yes, they are very high in cholesterol. And the idea is that, well, if you consume more dietary cholesterol than your body needs, that your levels are going to raise up, and that is going to be the thing that starts to clog your arteries. Well, the fact is, no real research exists on proving this instance. You see, once you eat dietary cholesterol, your total levels of both HDL and LDL will raise up simultaneously. And a good health profile is keeping your HDL and LDL in balance. And it's usually when an imbalance occurs where we start to see more risks associated with it. In fact, one of the craziest research studies was ever done when they looked at taking severely burned patients and giving them 35 eggs per day. Yes, you heard me correctly, 35 eggs per day. And one of the things that they found was they didn't see any real increase in lipid profiles that would indicate that something was unhealthy. And you see, this is the amazing thing about the body, is that the body knows how to auto-regulate its own cholesterol production. If you don't get enough cholesterol in through your diet, your liver is going to make it anyways. It's the same idea when it comes to water. Your body wants homeostasis. And so if you don't drink enough water, well, guess what? Your body is going to try and retain as much water as possible to try and maintain that balance. And the same thing is true if you drink too much water. If you drink too much water, your body is just going to pee out what it doesn't need to try and maintain that level. In fact, the majority of the studies that are done where we see an increase in risk of heart attack and disease, when we look at cholesterol levels, we are already looking at obese individuals and people with metabolic syndrome. And so you can't really draw any types of conclusion because these are already unhealthy individuals. So when you have someone who is already unhealthy with metabolic syndrome or who is obese, they could technically eat whatever they want. And guess what? That is going to skew the data. And that's why we have to look at things like RCT studies, which are randomized controlled trials. And this is where we're really trying to look at an individual and say, well, if we increase cholesterol, can we then test it and see if that is then going to increase X or whatever it might be. And usually even better, if you can have a control group, then you can test these things and see if a placebo had the same effect of the thing that you're testing. And this is really where better data exists. And there's more data around this proving that eggs are not bad than there is with data proving that it is. When we look at all the data that surrounds the whole idea that eggs are bad, you would be surprised, but they're not necessarily randomized controlled trials. No, there's something known as epidemiological studies. And this is when you're going to be looking at observational data, or you're even worse, you're going to be looking at things like someone was handed a pamphlet and they were asked, does your doctor say you're at risk for heart attack? They're like, yeah. And then they go down the list and it's like, do you eat eggs? And they're like, I think so. Yeah. And then, they mark it down. That is what that type of data looks like. And that's not really the way to do it. And so while that type of data, it can in a way give us a broad overview and start to see some correlation, but it doesn't necessarily show causation. Now, one study actually found that when you compared omnivores to lacto-ovo-vegetarians, that the omnivore type diet actually outperformed in terms of total amount of fat-free mass that was added on. Now, one of the reasons why is because more cholesterol was found in the other diet, because plants have 100 times less cholesterol production. And that's because plants don't have cholesterol. They have something known as beta cytosterols, which is their version of cholesterol. And cholesterol is just the thing that human bodies need to produce the sex hormones like testosterone, which is just going to help you get leaner and build more muscle and be stronger. And there's going to be even more research that I'm going to link in the description below for your guys' own research purposes if you want to see it, because some of it's quite amazing. So it doesn't mean go and now start eating a a dozen eggs every single day or having a 35 egg per day shake, you know, like some people. But what it does mean is that it's safe for you guys to start adding into your diet, and there's nothing for you to be worried about. You know, you don't have to limit your egg intake to 2 eggs per week or something crazy like that. You can have eggs every single day if you want. Just make sure that you are factoring in how it is increasing your calories. And I think if you guys start bringing it in, you're going to start noticing a lot better results. So look, let me know what you guys think. Do you like eggs? Has this information shed some light on this whole idea? Have you bought into the cholesterol myth that it still exists? Let me know. Go ahead and leave a comment below and let's start up a conversation. And look, that's it for today's video. Make sure that you guys hit that like button. And as always, guys, stay strong and I will see you next time.